Welcome back. I'm George from Barley and Hops, but I'm out here today at Walker Honey Farm again. And we've got Chase with us, our resident expert, and you've already seen him in action, so we're here to gain as much information as we possibly can. What are we doing today?
Today, well, we're kind of starting backwards. So we are finishing a batch today that was started a long time ago. The end goal is Citrus Tango here.
Oh, wow.
This is the final bottle. It is a true mead, a melomel, made with oranges and grapefruits, all fruit grown in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. We hand slice and juice and zest all that fruit. Hopefully I've got some pictures I can get to you for you to throw into the video maybe.
That'd be great. And maybe you can explain a little bit more later on through the video about, because I've always had a challenge with fermenting citrus.
It's difficult, and I've changed the way I do it because I've run into problems before.
There you go. Okay.
We can definitely talk about it.
We're going to get to that here later on in the video, so stick with us. All right, so what do you got here? This is the...
well, this is straight out of the tank, and so this is the mead that's getting filtered. Bright, lively, very sweet. But as you can see, hopefully, it's not crystal clear.
Okay.
I guess I should back up and talk about filtering. It's not something I like to do if I don't have to.
Okay, so it's not absolutely necessary, but when you're looking for more clarity, filtering comes in handy.
Exactly. If I was simply selling this mead to all of you who know about mead and how awesome and hip it is, I wouldn't worry about getting it crystal clear for a white wine drinker. But that's kind of the goal here, because that's our target customer. Another reason, this is a citrus mead, and this is getting a little nerdy, but citric acid, which is the main acid from the fruit in this mead, is not microbially stable, which means it's potentially food for bad things that could, could maybe, hopefully not, but maybe be growing in this wine right now, which is why we're going to filter them out today.
Okay, great. Yeah. Now we do this also with wine, so wine can or may not be.
Well, and I bought this filter secondhand from a brewery. You know, breweries are filtering their beer before it goes into a bright tank to be carbonated.
Right.
So.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about filtering and how you can do this at home, because the only difference between a commercial and a home brewer really is the size of the equipment.
It's just volume,
It's just volume, everything else, all the principles are still the same.
Yep.
And in the background here, we've got...
this is Colton.
Colton's back here. He's using the Star Sand, and he's already started with the sterilization.
That's right. We are making sure every speck of plastic or steel that this wine is going to touch will be scrubbed and sanitized before we get going today.
You stick with us, and we'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. So the basics of what we're doing today, which is filtering wine, we are going to force every ounce of our wine to go through a filter sheet. This is our filter media I'm holding here. We'll get into physically how it works, but the wine is going to be actually compressed and shoved long ways through one of these sheets. And these sheets are basically what is straining out yeast holes, any other potential bacteria. This is a 1 micron rating filter sheet, so this is a sterile filter, which does mean potentially we could be switching out filter media all day if there's a bunch of yeast still floating around in this mead that wants to clog it up real fast. Every batch is different, so we'll see. One thing I do like to talk about, filtering, and this big filter sheet I'm holding scares a lot of home brewers, but it's not something only reserved for the commercial style operations. I can show you right down here below me. This is actually the filter that we started with, and even 100, 200 gallon batches, we were forcing through this little homebrew filter. It's a Buon Vino is the brand there. But as you can see, this is very large, but we started with just this tiny little square. And so, I'm currently working with a batch that's about 400 gallons, but I've sent 5-gallon keg batches through a filter like this to the exact same result. So you don't need to think you have to be, rolling in big money and huge batches to be able to filter. We did upgrade to this. This construction here is going to give you a little bit more of a clear idea of how our filter works. You can kind of see these are the plates. So I did mention this is a 1 micron filter sheet to give you guys a good idea. 5 microns is about the, what would you say, width measurement of a human blood cell, whereas 75 is like the width of a human hair. So we really are getting down to a molecular scale here, just to give you an idea of what kind of sizes we're dealing with. This filter here, again, another plate and frame filter. These frames are basically what are going to hold the filter sheets, press them together real tight, and force the wine through long ways. And then we upgrade again to our big boy here that Colton is working on sanitizing. Basically, all of the wine is going to come in either this or this. These plates are going to kind of form a tunnel on the top and bottom for the wine to fill, and then the wine is going to be pressed sideways through these filter sheets, and we're going to have a bunch of them in here once we get this all set up, and then coming out the other side will be our clean, crystal clear filtered Citrus Tango.
Okay, so now we know a whole lot more about filtering than we knew before. First, that it's not absolutely necessary, but if you're looking for that clarity, it's fining your wine, your process. Then you can go through the filtering process. But there are other options because most homebrewers don't have equipment like this, although that small one is probably more readily available. What are some other options that they may have? I know cheesecloth is not a good thing to strengthen.
You're just oxidizing your wine. Cheesecloth's not going to catch anything.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you spilled a bunch of wood chips in your wine and you need to get them out.
Okay. Cheesecloth
isn't going to help. You did mention fining. I like to think of fining and filtration as two separate things.
Okay.
They accomplish the same goal, but in fining, you are adding something to the wine to chemically move something out, whereas filtration is much more
direct,
physically violent. You're just physically taking stuff out of the wine. So for fining, this batch of Citrus Tango has already gone through fining.
What do you use for fining?
I do two phases.
Yeah.
First phase is bentonite. That is a volcanic ash clay. It's used in lots of industries.
We're very familiar with bentonite.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Bentonite, now I'm not a science genius, so this is the part of the video where I might get this wrong. But the general principle is you mix it with water and it is negatively charged. It has a specific electrical charge.
Right.
And so let's say it's negatively charged. You pour it in the wine. It's going to bind to positively charged proteins and other molecules fogging up your wine and cause that now neutral molecule to sink to the bottom.
Right, to settle out. Okay.
Yeah, because if you've got a bunch of long protein molecules fogging up your wine and they all have the same electrical charge, they're reluctant to fall because they repel each other like the wrong sides of a magnet.
Exactly.
So you neutralize the charge. And then about a week or 2 weeks after I do bentonite and rack off of that bentonite, I do something called sparkaloid. That's like a proprietary fining agent you can buy.
Yeah.
It has the opposite charge.
We offer that at the store.
You do? Okay, good.
We have it, yeah.
It's basically the yin to bentonite's yang.
Right.
They do the same thing, just opposite charges. While Colton's still sanitizing our filter, getting everything put together, I'm just going to clean the hoses we're using. In this bucket is actually my PBW, if you guys are familiar with powdered brewery wash. This is more of just like a physical scrub, and then we're going to sanitize afterwards. And it's just going to scrub out any residue, any bugs that might have crawled up into my hoses last night. You never know. I always like to clean and sanitize everything both before and after you use it. It's really the only way to, be sure you're doing your best. Just let this run for like a minute, 90 seconds or so. I'm gonna flush it with sanitizer. So just move that over there. And I'll let it fly down the drain. Right, so we have our filter housing completely sanitized and constructed. As you hopefully can see, there's now these pink and red gaskets in between all these plates, and that creates our seal. So the tunnel, and in fact, maybe you can get the camera around, you can actually see through this tunnel. The meat is going to come in, fill this tunnel, and there's actually one down here too, can come in both sides, and then the wine is going to be forced to pass through these filter sheets. Yeah, you just ripped that one. But they do need to be wet first so the mead can actually pass through them without making a mess. Say what's up?
You want me to set them here when I'm done?
No, I want you to hand them directly to me. I don't want them touching anything but water and our clean gloves. That's it. That's good. One at a time. We set these in, square it up, and get a plate over to it. they actually alternate direction. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a rough side and a smooth side to each of these filter sheets. And they just go back and forth, and I believe that's to make it so it's even. There's not one obvious path of least resistance. So you kind of make the most of your filter media that way. Okay, so all our filter sheets are installed, as you can see, looking fairly even. Luckily, they give us a little extra room to work with, so they don't have to be perfect, but we try and line them up as best we can. Now, we just crank this to press them all together. Okay, and as we snug it up, we just want to make sure everything is straight as can, squeezing out any air bubbles they have left. And pretty soon, we should hear some water hitting the bottom pan as we kind of wring them out real tight. First things first, we are pumping what is in tank George here, filtering it and going into tank Newman. So, we are opening the floodgates of mead. There it goes. And this is your last chance to make sure everything is tight and mead isn't going to go flying everywhere. Colton, I want you to make sure you don't see any gaskets or open spots missing.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Gaskets missing or open spots, I should say. Okay, so we open up our input, we open our output, and we start pumping. But before we do, this is going to be our output hose. We're going straight into a bucket because we've got at least a solid 4 gallons of water just sitting in those filter pads that we just dipped. And I'm not really looking to dilute my wine. So we're going to run the first little bit out into a bucket. As soon as I see mead color coming out in my liquid, it's going straight into the tank. Okay, get my directions right. Here we go. Okay, so it's already up here. Pretty soon we'll be reading pressure. Colton, I want you looking, making sure you don't see mead spraying out. Okay, so you can see we've got some water coming out here. And we're already coming into our bucket.
Yeah, you're good.
And the water is turning golden like mead, almost. And I've almost maybe got about 3, maybe 4 gallons in this bucket. All right, now we're yellow. I turn it off. Try not to create a huge mess. All right. So as you can see, we've got some nice citrus mead coming out. But not quite as deep and foggy orange as the input. It's a much more crisp-looking, lemon-like yellow.
Now this is a totally awesome process. So we've watched Chase put this thing together with his help, and now they've got it running through these filters. Now remember, that's a 1 micron filter, so that is sterile. And I think Chase is going to come out with a comparison of what's going in the tank as opposed to what's coming out tank. Chase, come on over.
Yeah, all right. So,
and this is the very beginning, yeah.
Yes, this was what came out of the tank this morning, and I'm going to try and get that. You see, but this is coming out of the filter.
Wow.
And I don't know if you can actually tell.
Oh yeah, I can see the difference.
Very big difference.
Yeah, that is a day-night difference.
Yeah.
So this is just more or less for the aesthetic value.
Twofold. There's a cosmetic concern,
Yeah.
but there's also that citric acid issue, where
Exactly.
if I don't filter this, there is a chance that I could have some bottle bombs, months
Later
from
on.
now.
Okay. Wow.
Say this was like a blackberry mead and had very low citric acid content, I would probably just do my regular fining agents, and if it looked and tasted good at that point, I'd go straight to the bottle instead of filter.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've actually set us free, and you've really explained more about filtering than any of us probably knew before. And we've had a chance to witness this. So it's an amazing process. We thank you for your time.
It's
And
a
this
lot
is
of
something
fun.
you can actually do at home.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, look, until next time.
Happy brewing.
There
right?
you
Is that
go.
what all right.